Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that answers the question, why needs must when the devil drives? Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because today we're reviewing the Illustrated Beast, the Aleister Crowley Scrapbook. Now, you may be coming to this channel saying, why the hell would one episode would be about a kid's fantasy novel, and the next be about a occult figurehead? Well, it's because that's how I roll. Everything in between, man. I love it all. So this was published by Weiser Books on April 1st, 2022. And I actually bought it. Not 2022. That's a straight up lie. When was this published? I think it was 2002, and I just have a typo here. I bought this way back when it was originally released. And in my head, I was like, I never really liked Aleister Crowley, but I would like to know a little bit more about him. And I'm not sure I want to devote like an entire biography, because there are a few of them out there, just solely about him. So let's do this version of his history. So this was written by Sandy Robertson, who really mailed it in. I mean, straight up mailed it in with this book. It is, it's not great. And it's not great. It's not great. It isn't great because of, he's just not a very good writer. And then there's like a whole bunch of filler information in here that has no real bearing or context to Aleister Crowley himself. And what I mean by that is the author is a big fan of Aleister Crowley. And so he goes to a lot of extreme lengths in order to try to humanize him and show that he had many different interests, not just the occult, as it were. And the truth is yeah, he had many interests, but he wasn't good at any of them. And if you're looking objectively at Aleister Crowley's life, he wasn't even good in the occult. He was the worst at everything he ever did. And so I can't imagine why anyone would reflect back on a loser like Aleister Crowley and think, yeah, I want to emulate that guy. I mean, just look at, even in this, it's brought out in this book about his biography as well. So even in Aleister Crowley's lifetime, when he was living his life, he was constantly bankrupt. He was taking money from other people. He was trying to charge other people during his own magical orders that he created, because he got expelled from the other magical orders that he tried to become a part of, because he's a shyster. He's a snake oil salesman. He's just one of those occultic people. And if you have ever dealt with the occult, you know this type of person who wants to be really powerful and known as a sort of figurehead and prophet. But no one ever took him seriously in his lifetime. The only time anyone takes him seriously is nowadays, when they're reflecting back and don't actually know anything about his life. That's when they're like, oh, well, didn't Led Zeppelin mention Aleister Crowley once? Didn't Ozzy Osbourne have a song, Mr. Crowley? Doesn't that mean give him bona fides? Well, first of all, Ozzy Osbourne has nothing to do with the occult. Full stop. He's a rock star and moderately talented at best, as his best accomplishments were done in, if I'm going to be 100% honest, Black Sabbath. But that's another argument for another day. The truth about Aleister Crowley is that he wanted to be something greater than he actually was. And there's nothing wrong with that on its face. I mean, we all want to be the best versions of ourselves. No one wants to be a loser. You know, we try to improve and get rid of the faults that we find within ourselves so that we can be better versions of ourselves. Aleister Crowley never did that. He never took that introspective part of being a human adult. He just tried to latch on to other occultic people and try to ride their coattails by giving them money so that they would then promote him, so that he would then have authority over others. He tried to buy his way into it, which is really the occultic way. And that's why I've always seen it as piece of shit, sort of abstract idea, regardless of the occult institution you're a part of, whether it's the OTO, whether it's the Golden Dawn, whether it's his own Thelma attempt at movement, or any of the other, occult organizations that have sprung up since the 90s, paying homage to Aleister Crowley as if he did know what he was talking about. Full stop. Never did. It's all bullshit. 100%. So, why did I even bother finishing reading this? Well, apparently I'm a masochist. No, the fact is I bought this forever ago, and I wanted to give an honest and open review about some of the books that I haven't really fully gotten around to finishing. I had started this book. I just never really got around to finishing it for years until, well, now. So, Aleister Crowley was born October 12th, 1875. He was raised in Plymouth Brethren religious movement. His father was a big part of that, and which just meant that, they taught that like sex and pleasure was a sin. And so you were not supposed to engage in sex unless it was for reproduction, which is totally fucking insane. But that's where he was, right? In his parents' head. And so you could see everything that he did as a reflection of the really strict, much more than any Puritan religious movement ever could be, a reaction to this Plymouth Brethren religious movement that he was raised in. He just sort of fought against it. He did a lot of different activities that he thought would give him some sort of bona fides. First and foremost, he claimed to be a mountain climber, but he never actually summited any of the mountains he tried to climb. Of course, he had excuses for it. This author claims that he is this erudite artisan of sorts who, was engaged in painting of renowned skill. But if you've ever seen any of his paintings, they suck. This is a drawing of a self-portrait up there. That's not an alien. That's Aleister Crowley saying that that's what he looks like. He always added these little sort of blasphemous imagery in his art. And his big blasphemous sign was to use his first letter of his name, the A, and make it look like it's balls and a penis. How blasphemous is that? That's bathroom wall trash. That is not the marking of an occult leader that, had ancient secrets. No, he was a shyster loser, is what Aleister Crowley was. He wasn't just addicted to cocaine his entire life. He was addicted to heroin too. Which again, indulgence, not compulsion. This guy was a drug addict who was always broke because he never had any great ideas. His big ideas were to sell books by himself as the author, and no one bought them. And so he went bankrupt. And then he tried to convince other people to fund him. Whenever he found someone that would actually publish a book, he started writing under pseudonyms about himself. Now, this is akin to being in social media and having a burner account comment on how great your real account is. But it's just you the whole time. It's straight up pathetic. The more I read, the more disgusted I became, not with his actions, but with who he actually was. Total loser. And you find this a lot in occult world. Like occult circles, it's all losers all the time. That's why they have to convince other losers to pay them money or pay them respect, because your average everyday person won't do it because they're losers, and it's plain to see. It is obvious for everyone unless you're under the thumb or in this cult-like mentality of magical powers being disseminated from the cosmos, and you have to go and pay to get different ranks to unlock secrets. So not unlike Scientology, actually. But that's what their orders are. It got to a point where he was appointed as like London leaders of the OTO, and then that frizzled when they realized who he was. He was raised in ranks in the Golden Dawn, and then that frizzled when they realized who he was. He started his own group, and that fizzled. He was literally kicked out of Italy for the atrocities that he was committing. I mean, including bestiality and child abuse, sexual abuse. It just got really, really disgusting, really vile, very, very quick. He would sue people to try to make money for libel, and it was thrown out. I mean, he couldn't catch a break because he couldn't do anything valuable and worthwhile. And you'll note that it is only losers who reflect on Aleister Crowley as some sort of important occult figure. No one else does, because he's a shyster. It's like Donald Trump. Total shyster. Only people that see it are non-cult worshippers of him. So in the 1900s, he was adept minor in the Golden Dawn, but refused the higher status as he dabbled with homosexuality. So he went to, I think it was the France chapter of the Golden Dawn, and they did the ritual without his London group, and that causes huge kerfuffle, and then he got pretty much kicked out of the Golden Dawn. And it split apart the London Golden Dawn organization as well. In March 1904 in Cairo, he took dictation from a discarnate entity called Awas, his guardian angel, and that's where he came up with the Book of the Law, which is arguably his greatest accomplishment to occult information. But again, it's not unlike Joseph Smith in the Mormon religion, who stuck rocks in a hat, stuck his face in to look at the rocks. Apparently he could see in the dark. And then he transcribed angelic texts in the form of the Book of Mormon, which is a bunch of bullshit too. So anyone Scientology is another example. L. Ron Hubbard always wanted to be a science fiction author, then realized how easy it was to make anyone believe any religion. He even wrote about that, and then he made Scientology. Surprise, surprise, it's all bullshit and made up. Surprise, surprise to no one. So let's see what else. In 1907, he started the Silver Star, or Argentum Astrum. Didn't last long. 1912, he headed to UK and became part of the OTO chapter. Didn't last long. 1920, set up a notorious Abbey of Thelma, his own religion. That was the one that got kicked out by Mussolini from Italy. For all the atrocities they were committing there. He was, again, raging cocaine and heroin addict. He was bankrupt after suing the painter Nina Hamnet. He died December 1st, 1947, destitute, never to be found any fame. And he actually, what was interesting about him and added to the pathetic nature of his life was that he strived so hard to be someone of substance, to be an authority of sorts of the occult. And failed by himself. And then the tabloids in the UK started picking up and saying that he was the wickedest man in the world, and he was the Beast 666, and he came up with his own name of being 777, and the attribution of those titles to him made the general public look at him even more like a phony and a fraud and someone to avoid, thereby preventing him from ever getting any sense of authority or power or respect at all. So he went to this notorious route in order to find authority. Then once people caught on to it, they realized how foolish and stupid he was, and so he couldn't get it, even with these evil, wicked titles that he ascribed to himself, or the tabloids ascribed to him. Totally pathetic. He falls. Oh, in this book, really drives me insane when people don't do any research. This author is a fucking idiot. He falsely claims that the COS split in 1975 because LaVey tried a Crowley tactic of charging people for enlightenment. And where did he get this information from? Michael Aquino, a total fraud and shyster. And he just prints it as if it were true. I happen to know it is not. Unbelievable. What drives me crazy is that people are going to read that and think that that is truth because it is in print. Any idiot can print anything. That doesn't mean it's true. This idiot wrote this book trying to make Aleister Crowley look like someone of significance, and only made him look even worse. To someone who was open to the idea that maybe he had some, sort of interesting background that allowed people to have some sort of, fond reflection of his occult experiences. But no, It was all garbage, 100%. Kenneth Anger did, he was the only one who did any sort of Crowley-esque video work. He actually traveled to the Abbey in Italy and did the whole like sort of removing of the veneer of white paint that was painted all over the walls to uncover Crowley's own, painted walls and flooring to show the sort of ritualistic iconography that they put up there. This actually reminded me of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. If you ever saw the film, at the very beginning, it shows this little dirty cult compound, and the priest is sort of doing actual real magic in the movie. Of course, it's a movie, not real life. And you just saw a bunch of like paintings and drawings all over the walls and stuff, but it was disgusting and grimy and stuff. That's what I imagine this Abbey of Thelma being like that Kenneth Anger went and got work for. And I think most people, certainly in my side of circles, attribute any sort of significance to Kenneth Anger solely because Anton LaVey and he sort of talked a lot. They were friends. And so, sort of a guilt by association. Well, the same thing, borrowed equity in authority. He hung out with Anton LaVey. Well, then he must be someone of substance. But no, he's just an old man. I don't even know if he's still alive. Who, he did sort of avant-garde films and, sort of branched out to a cultnik type iconography and topics and stuff. But that was kind of it. So to try to then use Kenneth Anger as some sort of linchpin to prove Crowley's bona fides, again, is just pathetic. It's just ridiculous. Ultimately, when I reflect on Aleister Crowley, it is someone who failed. He failed at raising his status. He failed at being someone of significance. He failed at mastering his own life. He failed at trying to publish his work. And it was only after his death, after many, many years had passed, that anyone showed any interest in anything he ever did. And you have to ask yourself, if during their life they could not be someone of significance, why is it after their death they then garner some sort of notoriety? And it's because of time and distance. It's because people who knew him when he was alive are no longer alive. That's why. Even if you were old, and there's some writings in here of, it's so weird. They have like court transcripts, not directly dealing with Aleister Crowley, but dealing with other people about him. I mean, just talk about they couldn't find enough content to fill even this thin volume of a splat book, that they had to print court records, transcripts. So lazy. Where was I? So it has a sort of reflection of someone who owned a flat with a bunch of apartments in it, and then rented one of the rooms out to Aleister Crowley, and how he would beat his wife, the girls that he was with, and he would take money from them, and he didn't want to pay rent, and he was always late with everything, and whenever he did pay, it was from other people's pockets. I mean, just a piece of shit that you don't want to be involved with. And, at the time, people were offended about the potential religiosity or the occult or magical or evilness that might be associated with it due to the tabloids. But the real reason to stay away from him is not because he was evil, because he wasn't. It's because he was a shyster. He was just a garbage person. I mean, there's garbage people all over, people that you just avoid. They're psychic vampires. They suck you dry of resources, you dry of energy, you dry of will to live and your ability to actually be an independent, stand-up human being. That's who he was. And it just stuns me that people then nowadays reflect back. Even in the book of the law, the biggest thing was do as thou wilt should be the whole of the law. But that's not the whole of the statement. It was actually talking about love and finding love and being connected to everyone else. But they only take that first bit, so it sounds like, hey, I can do whatever I want. Crowley said so. I'm evil. Suck it. No, you're just a stupid 12-year-old kid. Grow the fuck up. It's so pathetic. So yeah, I don't recommend this to anyone. So yeah, they tried to show that he was multicultural and he was very artistic and stuff. They showed his, like I mentioned, his artwork and painting. They suck. They showed his attempts at poetry. Not terrible, but not good. His attempt at short fiction. They actually put this massive short story in there, which is just like a ripoff of the stories that, Throw Mama from the Train was taken from. These two guys agree to kill off people in order to, prove that they can get away with it. And then, one of them ends up getting caught and stuff. It's just a shit story that I fought through, doing my best. And I have to say, the story was worse than the book that the story was in, which is even worse. So yeah, he was a failed occult master or leader or student. Got kicked out of a bunch of different occult organizations for being a shyster. Tried to start his own. That ended in flames. Tried to be an author. That ended in flames. And then he ended up bankrupt and a drug addict and dead. I mean, we all end up dead, but so I mean, the truth is growing up, I was really, really into the occult, and I'm still, sort of fascinated by ideas in it, but I don't actually believe in any of it. But I like the idea of it, and so this sort of idea of ancient wisdom. But to then ascribe that to someone like this. I mean, someone, to ascribe authority to a human being like this, who you would never have in your life if he was alive, not because he's scary and evil, but because he's a fucking loser, is just a pathetic idea. Everyone is better than that. I mean, it's I don't understand it. So anyway, that's my takeaway from this book. And ultimately, I did give it 2 evil eyes out of 5 evil eyes, because it actually informed me in the opposite way of its intention of, trying to puff up Aleister Crowley's background and actual authority. And all it really did was pull him, deflate him, and bring him back down to the worm level that he actually lived in his life. So have you guys read this novel? Or it's not even a novel, this sort of splat book made by a fan about a man who is pretty pathetic. I would not recommend it, but if you really want to find out the type of person Aleister Crowley was, go ahead and check it out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, remember that evil spelled backwards is live, so get your asses out there and be evil.